All right, everybody. Welcome to the next edition or the latest edition of the Jacksonville Lean Consortium Lean Leadership webinar series. And the purpose of this is to bring some of the field's most respected voices into honest conversations about the work of pursuing excellence through lean thinking and practice. And we're very fortunate today to have Sheila Montney with us. And I'm going to get a little bit into Sheila and then we'll move into the presentation. And just for everybody's um, awareness, we have people from all over. We have some people from Jacksonville, the members of the Jacksonville Lean Consortium. And we also have people from a couple of case studies we're going to be going through. And we had some other people from around the world register for this. So as of now, we got the 16 people in here. I think there might be some other people that'll trickle in, but we want to make the most out of everybody's time. And we have a lot of great stuff to get through with this. So, a little bit about myself. I'm James Bussell, the Executive Director of the Jacksonville Lean Consortium, and we're based in Jacksonville, Florida, and we're a number of member-based organizations around Northeast Florida that are looking to pursue continuous improvement and collaborate with each other and learn. And one of the things we have decided that would be a good use of a lot of value is get outside voices from outside this area in different industries to be designed as a fireside chat. We realize we have a limited time. That's why I extended it to 75 minutes to make sure we want questions to be asked. But just some housekeeping. I ask if you have any questions as we're going along, put them in the chat and we will get to those. We want to make sure we keep the flow because we have a lot of fun stuff planned where we're going to have some case studies discussed, and Sheila's going to go through the model. So, Sheila, why don't I let you introduce yourself, and then we'll get into our PowerPoint slide deck.
Well, James, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm absolutely thrilled to be connected to a community that I also used to call home. I lived in Jacksonville, Florida in the late 80s, early 90s. It was wonderful to be there. I'm so grateful to get the opportunity to see some of you again. Um, as well, March 13th, 2020, that might be a date that is written forever in people's minds. I was in Jacksonville on March 13th, 2020, when the Tournament Players Club Championship got shut down in the middle of it. It was a really precarious time and a turning point also in a lot of continuous improvement journeys. So being with the Jacksonville Lean Consortium is just a real treat. And you guys might not know this, but James Bussell's dad is famous in the Shingo Institute. So Jerry Bussell, who wrote a fantastic book that is housed also in the Lincoln Presidential Library right here in Central Illinois, about Lincoln as a lean leader. It's a wonderful book. And he himself served many years on the Shingo Advisory Board when it was called Board of Governors. He served alongside the late Stephen Covey, who that name might ring a bell to you all. And the last time I got to hear the late Stephen Covey talk and James Bussell's dad's last meeting, I believe at the Shingo Institute, was when Jacksonville, Florida housed the Shingo International Conference about 18 or so years ago. So for those of you who are in Jacksonville, if you didn't have a chance to do that, let's bring it back to Jacksonville. The selections are made based on the opportunity for Gemba. With the reawakening, I think, of lean across the globe and certainly a renaissance too with the Shingo model. Let's make that possible. I would love that. I really love key lime pie. So it'd be brilliant to be there again.
So we're very excited about this, and there's a reason too with Sheila being a Shingo affiliate, which she'll explain how this means a lot to me. And I'm looking to bring this back because Sheila and I both agree, and as many others, that this is the best model for operational excellence as there is. And for the organizations being able to, try to throw their hat in the ring to try to challenge for one of these awards, it's the standard for excellence. And it's a very strict standard too. And they want places to be truly great that can be evangelists for continuous improvement. So I just wanted to say that. I will stop talking now and share my screen so we can move into the presentation. And again, I apologize for any of my amateur abilities, like when it comes to technology sometimes. So if we have any problems, just please let me know. I'm going to put this into slideshow and then we're going to play from the start. Okay, I'm going to move this down. Are we, and then we got Carrie. I'll keep admitting people. We got people trickling in. And so everybody can see the screen. We good? Okay, great. And then I'm going to be operating the slides, let Sheila do some of the talking. I might interject because I'm very rude at different occasions if something comes into my head. But we would design this, as you can see, Sheila has a better backdrop than I do. We want this to be kind of a fireside chat. And I know for maybe some of you in the Midwest and other areas, it might be a little more fitting. In Florida, it's pretty darn hot, but we want this to be something that extends beyond this conversation, to keep the conversation going. And no matter what industry you are or where you're located, that we can keep this. So without further ado, this is designed to be a fireside chat. But I asked, so to make sure we get through, if you have questions, put them in the comments, and we're going to have time for a Q&A to go through. And so to make sure we make the most of everyone's time and we can, make this as valuable as possible. So Sheila, why don't I let you take over for the agenda, and then, I'll be guiding the slides as we go.
Well, that sounds fantastic, James. So thank you very much. Let's just get into it. There are going to really be three primary things that we're going to cover today. First of all is what is this whole Shingo thing? And is this some type of competing methodology? I did notice we have been very fortunate to have Joanne Paps from the Shingo Institute pop up on the screen here. So Joanne, thank you so much for coming today. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Shingo model, and we're going to also talk just briefly about my own personal journey with Lean and how the Shingo Institute and the Shingo model really impacted me personally and professionally. And then the cherry on top is we're going to hear three inspiring case studies with the people who actually authored those stories, and those books are continuing here with us so that everyone on the call and also these communities with one another, and they don't know each other, are going to have the opportunity to really broaden this into a conversation across all of the participants today. So thrilled to be here, and thank you so much, James. You can go on to the next slide.
All right.
All right, so what is the Shingo Institute anyway? I don't know how many folks on here are unfamiliar with the Shingo Institute, but I encourage you to take a look at shingo.org. The Shingo Institute is a research-based institute housed at Utah State University. And the head of research, by the way, is who is on with us today. She's very interested, as is the Institute, on the emerging use in local governments and in public education. It's interesting because it's not so emerging in that a couple of these case studies have been on the Shingo journey now for about 10 years, which is amazing. The Shingo Institute really is a global organization. There are about 40 affiliates that are located across the country, 6 continents. Last year, the Discover Excellence workshop, I believe, was taught in 37 countries. The model itself is translated into 17 languages. It is not a competing methodology with Lean or anything else. It is really just a universal framework for whatever methods and tools you're using in your organization. It pulls everything together. It kind of pulls together what I think all of us in our journeys maybe find, we get stuck and there's something missing. And this is what provides the way to get unstuck. So. All right, so I know you can't see this, but guess what? If you haven't already, you're going to be getting a copy of the Shingo Model booklet sent to you. which you can, keep digitally as a booklet. You can certainly go also to shingo.org and see what the model is all about and get access to all kinds of free resources to support your journey. So the image on the left is the model itself, but the image on the right is the one that is often most thought of as the Shingo model. And on the next slide, we're going to take a closer look at what that's all about. So the Shingo model started, its namesake is Shigeo Shingo, who was the co-creator of the Toyota production system alongside Taichi Ono. He holds an honorary doctorate from Utah State University, and his late son was also a part of the Shingo advisory board when I was on it. It was just remarkable to be able to work alongside him and learn from him firsthand. So the Shingo Institute didn't start with the Shingo model. They started as ambassadors for improvement, and the model evolved over time through their research. One of the things that they discovered with early prize winners who were receiving recognition from the Shingo Institute is that some of the improvements, some of the excellence, they crested maybe the mountaintop and then began to slide back down. And that research supported that improvement methodologies are important, but they are insufficient to sustain continuous improvement. And the Shingo model then evolved to what they call their 3 insights of organizational excellence. And those insights are, number 1, ideal results require ideal behaviors. Now, I'm sure some of you in your organizations, and maybe you've been subject to this personally, have gotten results without the best of behaviors. Their model finds that sustainable organization requires ideal behaviors. Purpose and systems drive behavior. We're going to talk about systems a bit. We're not talking about technology systems. And principles inform ideal behavior. That's what you saw in that image, and what we're going to go deeper in here is the 10 reasons why I love the Shingo Institute and the Shingo model. Before we do that, let's have a little awakening just to make sure you're all here today with paying attention. Take a look at this slide. Can you read it? Let's go on to the next one. I think in about 15 seconds, let's see if you can read this slide. Got it? All right. So this is a metaphor for me. The difference between tools and systems. The letters are the tools, the mechanics that make up language, but language is a systems approach. Tools don't have to be perfect. None of our deployments are perfect. No one. There is no perfect way. There is no algorithm for this. But this is just simply meaning to illustrate that it's the systems approach that allow you to be successful and continuously improve over time. So you can go on, James. All right, so the Shingo guiding principles. These form the principles that the Shingo model anchors on. The principles themselves are hierarchical, and at the foundation is culture. That's what the Shingo Institute's research found was lacking in their early prize winners. A culture of continuous improvement that is rooted on respect every individual and lead with humility. Next is the continuous improvement dimension, and the principles in that dimension are in this order: assure quality at the source, it starts at the bottom, so I'll read it that way. Seek perfection. That doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, but that means we're always seeking perfection. Embrace scientific thinking. Focus on process. So when we talk about process improvement methods, the continuous improvement dimension is about that, but as you can see already, the Shingo model is much broader than that. Uh, Improve flow and pull and assure quality at the source, mistake proofing. And then without alignment, you can't sustain. Alignment and systems thinking are what we're talking about here at the top. So for those of you who are followers of systems thinking, whether it's Peter Senge or whether it's Deming, create constancy of purpose and create value for the customer, which is the results. Everything flows to creating value for the customer, however you define customer, constituent, resident, customer, stakeholder. That comprises the 10 principles of the Shingo model. You can go on, James. So how do you learn about the Shingo model? Well, you can learn for free. And for the first 2 years of my journey, that's what I did. I mean, I attended maybe a few events, but there are webinars that are at no charge. There's materials that you can download at no charge. And then a way to really warp speed that journey is through the very unique workshop series that the Shingo Institute has, beginning with Discover Excellence. So I know a few of you on this webinar today have been to Shingo workshops, but probably most of you haven't. They're very different than going to, say, a yellow belt or a green belt class, or what I call an adrenaline shot from a very charismatic leadership speaker. You actually learn structured approaches to seek out, to understand what ideal behaviors look like, and to understand the systems, formal or informal, because we have systems, whether or not we call them that are driving those behaviors and how that combination leads to results. There are 6 workshops. Shingo affiliates can go through a structured process to become licensed to share those workshops with others. And there are 2 ways to go about it. You can actually have private workshops at your organization, which about 60% of the workshops are private. And then you can also take public workshops and visit and learn alongside people from other organizations. And our case studies are going to give examples of both of those paths. You can go on to the next one. So now we're going to go into step 2 here, which is a little bit about my journey. So we'll start with that weird Keikaku Kaizen slide. So in 2006, I was given a development assignment to look at the structure of one of our oldest product lines at State Farm, our organizational framework, the strategy around that product line. And if I could start over, clean slate, how would we run the organization? And along that time, I had a few different things that just happened to be coincidental, serendipity. One was the publication of the Lean Service Machine article in Harvard Business Review. Another was a chance introduction to someone who became my mentor for about 2 years, the late Dr. Michael Hammer, who wrote Reengineering the Corporation and many other books and lots of Harvard Business Review and MIT Sloan Journal articles along the way. And I also was introduced to someone named Louis Telleria, who happened to be a subcontractor to a contractor at State Farm, who wrote on my whiteboard, shingoprize.org, and said, look to this organization. It will guide you for the long haul. So why did I put this slide here, Keikaku and Kaizen? Well, our first foray into lean and into transformation was not only lean tools, it was hardcore reengineering. It was bringing in the principles of the shop floor, the methods that they use to literally create continuous flow lines in a 90-year-old business in a white-collar environment. It was truly transformational. The results we achieved were astounding. And we were able miraculously to get employee buy-in for that because they saw the value that we were creating for our customers. And State Farm is really a customer-owned organization as a mutual insurer. However, when we started going deeper into the Shingo model, we realized that we were really missing the opportunity. Those gains were short term. It created a standard. It led to tremendous results, both in easier, better, faster, and cheaper. However, it did not create a framework to engage and empower everyone in that process. It was more or less a small team of really skilled people were going to tell everyone what to do. And that doesn't feel good. And it also doesn't optimize the latent potential that exists within everyone to contribute, within everyone to have an owner mentality in work. Both of these things together create the transformation cycle. And usually when organizations, private and public sector, think about cost containment, they think of cutting programs, they think of cutting people, but how you use your time, how work is done, that's where the opportunity is to truly transform your organization in a way that creates value that continuously escalates over time. You can go on, James. So why would we choose to compete for Shingo recognition? I mean, it's a very private thing, right? No one knows you're competing for Shingo recognition. No one, it's not like you're entering a contest. And oh, by the way, Shingo recognition isn't about winners and losers. The 150 approximate Shingo examiners around the world, I'm sure, share my passion that we want everyone to be a Shingo Prize winner. There is no, you can only have one first, second, and third prize, silver, bronze. It's all playing against the course. It's playing against the standard. And I hope and would love to see so many people having this joyful moment. Why did we do it? First of all, because we felt it would be a test for us as to whether or not we were on the right track. We also felt that the value of the feedback would do more for us than any, top 4 consulting firm in the world or anything like that, because it would be pure feedback from people. When you go through an examination, 5 different people from 5 different organizations descend upon your site to interact with you, each of whom is looking to be helpful to you in your journey, which is brilliant. And the feedback that we got was beautiful. It was so meaningful. It was so helpful. And we were able to make dramatic improvements from that point forward. That was just wonderful. I encourage and hope everyone would aspire at some point to not only challenge for Shingo recognition, but to continue to challenge against their maturity and re-challenge and so forth. You can go on. All right, so now we're going to transition into the plot thickens, and we're going to talk a little bit about the interesting things in local government that I never thought about. My involvement with local government and state government and the application of lean and the Shingo model actually began in 2016, and it is too connected to the Shingo Institute. The governor of the state of Illinois at that time had read an article in the Wall Street Journal about Dr. Pepper Snapple, an organization whose leader I've had the privilege of benchmarking with, and said, why can't we do this? It was about their lean journey, and it was all full of baseball metaphors. And Dr. Pepper Snapple said, we're still at batting practice. And our governor was inspired by that. He went first to the Illinois Manufacturing Excellence Center for guidance. And he was finding that the language in manufacturing wasn't really resonating in a way that he had hoped. And somehow they found out about the Shingo Institute. They reached out to the Shingo Institute, and lo and behold, on the website, they saw my name 60 miles down the road in Bloomington, Illinois, and reached out. That began a relationship between State Farm and the state of Illinois and me personally and the state of Illinois that continues to this day. One of the guys who I worked with, who was tasked with starting up their program, actually is someone who's a close personal friend now, and I'll talk a little bit more about him later. But here's insight number one for me. We can all say, we don't make widgets, we're not manufacturing anyone. I mean, at State Farm, I heard all of those things too. And we all struggle with succession, but local government, their succession is a roulette wheel. It's not planned succession. It's elected officials who come in with their own agendas, which may or may not align with what's in the best interest of their constituents and the stakeholders that they serve. I have a special place in my heart for what's called the council manager form of government, where the person who's really running the city, it has, in my case, in my community, 9 bosses. And those bosses are going to rotate through every 2 years. And what a wild card that can be, to not have that steady anchor and understanding of what the North Star looks like. So let's go on and take a look at some of the other specific things that local governments and state governments and public education face that we don't face in the private sector. Open Meetings Act. Guess what? You know, those conference room conversations that you have at your organizations, if it involves elected officials, a quorum of elected officials, anyone, anywhere is going to have notice of those meetings and have the opportunity to be present. Freedom of information or public records requests, the emails you write, all of those things. It's just remarkable that you are constantly subject to people looking and taking out of context conversations that you have in writing in meetings or documents that you produce. You're in the news all the time, and usually people in the media aren't seeking to highlight all of the great things that you do. And then in the case of my own community, 11 bargaining units. But what that all adds up to, I believe, is the North Star is often no bad press. But I believe there's a better way, and we're going to see that here in a moment. So lean government. To the best of my knowledge, the foray truly into lean government as a concept started with the person in this picture with me, the former mayor of Fort Wayne, Indiana, Graham Richard, who I am very proud to say is a senior advisor to us at Win Together, and he is truly a delightful person. He's wonderful. Lean government approaches, though, generally have been around, and this is, I'm going to say, at state level, some local level, and, you know, also to some degree in federal agencies. Centers of excellence. You know, we're going to have a small group that takes on projects, and that's really what our program looks like. What I call Gilligan's Island training for everyone. In 3 hours, we're going to train like everybody that works here. We're going to put them through, you know, either a seminar or something online. And we're going to say in our metrics, you know, we've trained 3,800 people. Logos and branding, that's often one of the first things they do. And they did that in Illinois. They called it Rapid Results, and that's the name they still use for today. It's not a good thing or a bad thing. And with any of these things, they're not good or bad. What's missing often, though, is something that provides the connection to bring them all together so that they can operate as a macro system to drive ideal behavior and sustainable results. And then, of course, Doge, which we have Doge-like things, right, in the private sector as well. Let's sit around and talk about what we don't need to do. And that's great. I love the Peter Drucker quote. There's nothing so useless as efficiently doing that which should not be done at all. But in reality, that gets back to, are you going to cut programs? Are you going to cut people? Or are you going to cut what doesn't create value? And those may or may not be in alignment. Again, no judgment in any of these things, but these are often the approaches. So you can go on to the next. So a few weeks ago, I had the chance to spend some time at a conference sponsored by Strategic Government Resources and the Alliance for Education or for Innovation, government focused. And it was remarkable to be, again, another movie reference of Groundhog Day, of how little maturity in the 4 years that I've been attending that event there's been in the evolution of city. And this is a city-focused conference, public health also there, where it's really the same case studies that I heard 4 years ago. And when a panel was set up to talk about their programs, the number one barrier crowdsourced by the 300 plus people was we don't have time. We don't have time to do this. And I'm broadening that to we don't have time to save time. But what if you could invest an hour to save 6? Wouldn't that be kind of a good deal? We're going to see something in one of the case studies here from Kimberly Area School District that I love, a quote that they had in one of their slides. So time is money in local government, just as it is anywhere else. But often we consider money to be those things we write checks out for to other people. These statistics are from my own community. An hour of labor is about $42,000. So every time we send a note out that says, everybody spend an hour doing this, we're spending $42,000. A minute, 700. 1%. And when you think about your own time, and I'll say through confession that I certainly have more than 1% opportunity to optimize how I'm investing my time for greater return, both during my period at State Farm and also in local government and also with Win Together. That's a lot of money. I would encourage you, look at your own cost structure. We use this at State Farm, and often, there's an imposition from your corporate office. I want you to all do this. There's an imposition from the state if you're in government, whether you're in education or whether you're in local government. I want you to all take this 1 hour video. It's a new mandate. They're spending your time. And yet we think long and hard and spend weeks agonizing over a $15,000 spend in local government to invest in your people, to invest in making your people be more effective, to increase their leverage and unleash their potential. But we blow time. At least that's my experience in a very significant way. All right. So now we're going to get into the good stuff. This is really the last part of the speaking part of this program. And then we'll open it up to a conversation with all of you. But I'm thrilled today to, first of all, have the opportunity for folks to be here from Kimberly Area School District in Wisconsin, the City of Goodyear, Arizona, and my own hometown, the City of Bloomington, Illinois. And what I'm going to do here, for those who are from these 3 organizations, I'm going to briefly touch on each of your stories through my words and through input that you all have provided. And then we're going to move into opening up this conversation to include you all and the rest of the participants today. So first, I'd like to highlight Kimberly Schools. I met Kimberly Schools a few months ago via, again, the Shingo Institute, when their superintendent reached out to say, we'd like to reinvigorate our Shingo journey. And what a thrill and inspiration it has been for me to learn from them. The documents that they have, the artifacts they've created, their journey is just remarkable. You can see here some of their tools. Their vision statement is really all about student outcomes. and it shows in the results that they're achieving. I mentioned a quote earlier that I love, which is right here on the left, and that is the role of strategic leadership in organizations. I'll tell you, in my own community, and certainly this was true at State Farm as well, strategic layer leadership, oh, I've got 15 minutes, the clock is running, tell me what's going on. When you do not give a topic the time it deserves, then you spend more time on that topic than you should tenfold. Invariably, that happens. You're having incomplete conversations across months and sometimes even years. Time is finite. As I read Kimberly's role of strategic leadership, I love this. Being everywhere equals being nowhere. I am personally on a do better program for that. I'll probably be on a do better program for that for the rest of my life. So we can go on to the next slide. They have a very structured approach and have taken the time to build systems in their organization, and they are achieving outstanding results. Next. Here's an example from one of their schools. How cool is this? Stated a future condition that they're aspiring to. When you look at things, when you think about tomorrow and what you're going to do differently tomorrow, that can be, daunting, or you do something super tactical. But when you start with the end in mind, what is your future contention? What do you want your organization to look and feel like in a year? And then work back to figure out the steps that you need to take in order to make that happen. It can be a very, very effective approach. And at the end of the day, everything that we do is supposed to create value and deliver results, right? Because probably everyone on this call today has had lean training of some sort. And in lean, we're taught that if it doesn't create value for the customer, it is by definition waste. And the Shingo model is not another program or something like that. It's not additive. It's a framework that allows you to get into a rhythm, a cadence that generates ongoing results. And check out these results from the achievement score on the Kimberly School District. I found that by going out and looking at the Wisconsin site. They are scoring on achievement higher than 92.9% of the districts in Wisconsin, and yet they spend less per student than their peers. Awesome job, Kimberly. And I cannot wait to invite Denise and John into this conversation in just a few minutes here. Next up, the City of Goodyear. For 5 years, I started working on the concept of Win Together and trying to bring lean principles and specifically the Shingo model to local government way back in, goodness, that would have been in 19 and early 20. That's how I met Graham Richard, by the way, because I started reaching out to anyone that I could find anywhere in the US, in Canada, and abroad that was successfully using the Shingo model, lean, and so forth. I didn't find Goodyear, but I found Goodyear in a way that again was serendipity when they kind of found me, which was just amazing. And I am so inspired by what they have already accomplished and the future ahead and the beacon that they will also provide in local government, as Kimberly will provide for the balance of public education. They have an incredibly thriving workforce, and they started their journey focused on culture. Most organizations get to the culture piece after they have failed to sustain with tools. So many things that they have done, so many awards that they have received. It's just remarkable. They started by doing something that many organizations give lip service to, but few really ever do. Which is to truly embrace what it means to say that your employees are your best asset. The City of Goodyear has done a remarkable draw. I think I've never seen anything like it. And I have visited so many organizations over the years. This is a quote from one of their awards that I found. This is one of their health and performance productivity management networks. This is a quote from their CEO that you can read here on the screen. They have
I'll
received
get with you in a
recognition.
second. Sorry.
Okay. Got it.
Okay.
So they have received recognition for culture and performance excellence across basically the entire organization. And we are going to get to hear about how they started their journey when we invite Tim Fisher into the conversation in just a few minutes. Their beginning, the catalyst was serendipity. Again, it was the same individual who was the seed that planted this beautiful garden in Goodyear, was asked to attend a conference that had nothing to do directly with the Shingo model, but that's when he was introduced to it. And now they are investing and learning at all levels of their organization, not just the Shingo model, but also the other wonderful tools that they use and systems that they're creating to continue to build on employee wellness and employee well-being, and how that leads to something that their council feels, that their constituents feel, that their stakeholders feel, and that they can see that core cause and effect between how they're performing, how they're building their culture, and the impact it's having on their stakeholders as they create value for the customer. And that organization oozes with trust. It's just remarkable to be there. There is perceivably no fear. So let's go on. Bloomington. So the city of Bloomington took a little bit different approach. We committed to this as a city council under the leadership of Jeff Jergens, who I don't know if he is on this call today, but he has been a fantastic ambassador for continuous improvement in the city of Bloomington. Making life better is their purpose statement. The Shingo Institute encourages organizations to anchor on purpose because that will help guide them. And that's a much better purpose statement than no bad press. These are just a few milestones. This is kind of my own tick marking, my own track. The first day I was elected in city council, and even 2 years prior, I started trying to encourage the city of Bloomington to consider partnering with State Farm to bring lean concepts into the organization. 882 days into it, Jeff Jurgens went to the city manager international or the nationwide conference and took a yellow belt class, and it was brilliant. I remember him coming back and saying, wow, why aren't we doing this? It's so logical. But Shigeo Shingo says logic doesn't influence change, emotion does. That's a whole nother conversation. But we've gotten there, and I'm so proud of what they've been doing. It took a while longer to get to that council resolution and to really get them going. And their first Discover Excellence workshop with the Shingo Institute was one where they were a host site for local employers around our community, which is fantastic. It builds trust within the city for people to see that level of transparency in the government and to see the humility and the respect that is shown by wanting to study side by side. You can go on now. So this is a little bit about what I just mentioned. We also had elected officials take that Discover Excellence class from a different unit of government in the McLean County area, the Bloomington Township government. And I believe we may have one or two of those folks here today. And that has led to relationships that are planting seeds for people to mentor one another, to study together, to learn from each other. One of the organizations that participated has just recently agreed to formally mentor the Bloomington Township in some process mapping and continuous improvement work, which I think is fantastic. You can go on, James. The City of Bloomington also has an e-learning suite. I mentioned the state of Illinois. John Baranzelli, who was formerly a director in the Department of Transportation, who was tasked to head up the Department of Rapid Results. When we started studying lean concepts in local government, we found that no one was creating training that was written in the language of government. It was really written in the language primarily of manufacturing, to some degree healthcare, and then there would be a phrase that says, and it applies to you too. So John Baranzelli partnered with me and with an organization out of Atlanta, and we actually wrote foundational lean training in the language of government so that it's very relatable for people to learn. Next slide. So we're going to hear from Anthony Nelson. I'm so thrilled for what he has done. His Shingo journey really began by visiting some Shingo prize-winning sites out in Utah and having the opportunity to see what benchmarking can do for you, to inspire you in ways that you wouldn't see if you were just going to another community and looking at what they're doing. He's had incredible results in running our arts and entertainment area and several event venues in town, where he's delivered great growth in revenue per visitor and also improving the guest experience and in growing these assets for the city. Similarly, plan review, permitting lead time, that's always an opportunity. And the organization is always getting better with their improvements. That's one of their phrases that they use, always getting better improvements. So you can continue. So here we are now. This is the time when we get to spend the next 25 minutes or so with the folks that are here with us, to invite them into this conversation.
And
So
just so
Jeff,
everybody
I will
knows,
turn it.
everybody will get this slide deck. Everyone will get the Shingo Model booklet. We'll get, and then there might be some other resources, but as you can see, there's a QR code here. So if you don't capture it right now, it's okay. You'll be able to receive this. And Sheila, I'll actually defer to you to, we have 25 minutes left, just about we should start with talking about their journey. And, if you kind of want to moderate that as well.
Fantastic. Well, let's just go in order. Let's start with Kimberly Area School District. I think we have John with us. We have Denise with us. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're both here.
We're sitting together.
Fantastic. The information you said to me, the conversations we've had, you just can't. First of all, I'm a horrible poker player. You're seeing me smiling because I can't contain it. I'm absolutely in love with what you're doing. And the accomplishments that you've made. So please share a little bit about how you got started and the experiences that you've had and any challenges that you faced.
I'll let you start, since you started at the model cell.
Okay. Well, actually, the where we got started was our connection with a local healthcare organization. At the time, State of Care, the CEO was John Toussaint, who wrote a book on the mend. And we really started there. Our superintendent at the time, who's now retired, approached me about, basically said, we're going to try this and we'll put you at this school. And that's really where it started at Maple View Intermediate back in, it would have been about 2013 or 14. And we really brought John Toussaint into our district to help us start to look at continuous improvement thinking. We started with the idea of tools and lean and that sort of thing. And then eventually found Shingo principles. I'm not sure exactly through.
Well, through Toussaint, through Jake Raymer, because Jake came to Theta Care's, their coaching, the CI coaching that they had there. So then we found Jake Raymer, and Jake taught Shingo. And we're like, oh, we're really interested in this. And that started the Shingo journey for us.
And that's where we started shifting to the idea of looking at our behaviors versus, making things more lean or efficient, but really looking at behaviors, because we really bought into the idea that behaviors drive results, ideal behaviors drive your work. So that's really where it started at my school.
And then once the model cell, once John did that, then we started to learn from the district level how that impacted our leadership systems and our strategic systems. And so we could start to learn more about those systems, because it was this cycle of, okay, John's feeding us this information from the school. How does that change how we react at this higher level, which then prepared us for when we were ready to kind of spread this more to other buildings. And as other buildings started to engage in this, we were able to understand more what the journey might look like. So we learned more about some of our other systems through this work, but it really started at the model cell building.
Yeah, and our focus really at Mapleview in the end turned out to be around engaging the students in the ideal behaviors. And in the end, what we have now is what we would call our learning system. And that was flashed up on a slide earlier, and where we have ideal behaviors that we want to see students engaging in regularly. And we can look for that when we go to Gemba. And then the teachers have to behave in a certain way in order to help us get those behaviors from our students. And in the end, the students get the results. And that's where it ties right to our vision around our kids being problem solvers. Because if they don't have certain behaviors, they're not going to be problem solvers and be able to come upon a unique problem in order to be correct with it or get an answer or a solution. So that's really what it evolved to eventually.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's just remarkable. And I would encourage you guys on this webinar to get in touch with Kimberly. I mean, get your local school districts connected with them. I mean, it's just so inspiring to read about what they have built and also to learn from the struggles. I mean, when any of us talk about model cells, our proof of concepts, where we started, sometimes that's where the emotional connection to the work is. And how do you replicate that through leadership transitions or when you want to expand to other areas of your organization, other locations, other divisions, that sort of thing. Thank you guys so much for being here today. And I know we're going to open it up for broader questions to you, but with that, let's go on to the City of Goodyear, Arizona. Tim and Alex, thank you guys so much for being on the call today. I had the pleasure of being out there a couple times in February, which I'll tell you is a delight if you live in Central Illinois, but that was nothing compared to the feeling that you get when you walk in, not only inside their building, but even around their building as you greet people in the parking lot, as you see people outside coming to and from work. I mean, it is just an amazing culture. So Alex and Tim.
Oh, hi. You were excited that we were in love with what you just showed about Kimberly. That thing was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. So let me just say I'd love to chat with you soon after here, I'm sure. So we've been on a journey since 2014, probably. We're connected to the Alliance for Innovation that Sheila described, that she was at the conference a couple of weeks ago. And all we wanted to do there was learn how to innovate. That's what we did. We had an original core group of people to learn what innovation could look like in local government back in 2014. And as a group, we all got to a place where what we wanted to do was we wanted to engage employees. So we started our journey by engagement. So I went to the leader at the time and I said, hey, the number one engagement tool I know is Lean. So we should do that. And so she said to me, okay, go ahead. And I said, go ahead and do what? She said, well, go ahead and do that. So this is just how it was. And so we had no training. I have no formal background in Lean. I'm a process. I love to help people and fix things, but we had no skill at this point in the journey. So she said, go ahead. So we went and did this traditional thing that you heard Sheila say. We had 3 or 4 of those things on the first slide, which is we trained every single employee in the whole organization, 485 at that point. So in 2024, we had 485. We have 1,100 today. So it's been a large growth environment that we're in out here in Goodyear. Are we the 9th fastest growing city? What? Of a certain size or something? So we've been on this straight up journey for development for probably 12 to 14 years. And so we wanted to engage in people. That's all we wanted to do. We had a people master plan that said we should have a roadmap for people development. And we've had that since 2012. And the leader who brought that to us was also the leader who said, just go ahead and do lean. So we said, okay, we did all the traditional things. We trained every single person, firefighters, police officers, parks, every single person. We built cross-functional teams. We did all sorts of things. We had our first rapid improvement event in our fleet department, which is very happy to see. You see they've continued this on for 5 years in a row, is nationally recognized as the top 50. So we did this wide reach with no depth. And as you could see from what Sheila described, the Institute says that's cool. It probably won't sustain. And in the end, we couldn't contain, we couldn't make this work after 2 years. And then somehow I magically got to go to the Northeast Lean Conference. I was the safety and risk person for the city then. I wasn't the continuous improvement person. My boss didn't want to go. She said, do you want to go? And I had been to Portland, Maine. So I'm like, sure, who doesn't want to go to Portland, Maine? So I went to Portland, Maine. I happened to run into a Shingo a breakout session taught by Bruce Hamilton. And I was like, whoa, this thing is what we're missing. Because when you looked at the model, it said in the original model way back when, it had core values and ideal principles. Core values were in the middle, and we had core values. And I'm like, man, if we just had some guiding principles that could connect to this. So we brought it back. I brought it back, and I said, hey, this is what we need to do. And the leader at that time said, we can't do another model. I can't do a model. If you want to go do this, just go embed it in what we do. And so that's really what we did. We stopped talking about Shingo except in one place, and that's the development services area where we are, which at that point encompassed economic development, engineering, and development services. And we just were really focused there. But what really got us there, those of you that are in local government, is we had a burning platform because every single developer said we couldn't get projects through. And we couldn't grow the city because we couldn't get development through the system. So there was a real push to actually drive continuous improvement. And we didn't do it the right way. We did it the wrong way. We had amazing results, but we ran over people. And it just wasn't acceptable here. So we had to pull back and we had to say that just won't work. And sorry, I'm just emotional about it. It was 7 years ago. But it was just horrible. We just ran over people for performance and it just didn't work. So then we hunkered back down and we said, okay, let's get back to the Shingo thing. We could do it in a local area. We created a model cell. And we've just been working at it ever since. And I love the analogy of being in the batting cage because I swear we feel like we're barely in the batting cage. We can barely get started. We have some of everything. But what we don't have is behaviors. We just looked at our planning and scheduling system. It has every tool, everything perfect, but we don't have the behaviors to drive it, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work, even though everything is perfectly laid out. It just doesn't work. It's not delivering the results that we expect and the citizen expects. And so this journey about the Shingo model and why this ideal results require ideal behaviors, this stuff is real and it's not easy, and but we're not stopping, right? We just trained everybody all over again. Sheila was out here with the team. Carrie, nice to see you, Carrie. Carrie was out here with us. So it was really a joy to get some real coaching because we've had no coaching in this. We wished when you said you had their data, I was like, what? I wish somebody had been coaching us, but now we have Sheila, Carrie, so maybe we'll get somewhere this time. That's our story, Sheila.
Awesome.
Well, Tim, you guys are amazing. And I love that you mentioned this. Every organization gets stuck. It just invariably happens. Even on the Shingo journey, you can get stuck. But that's what the Shingo community is all about. It's such an incredibly generous community and you don't have to call it anything. It's really an important piece that you brought up that someone thought, oh, are we introducing a new methodology? I think until the point where we actually maybe saw that press release that said State Farm Life was being recognized with the bronze medallion, I don't think most people in our organization knew that we were using the Shingo model. We just pulled those principles into everything that we did and really used that framework in the background to guide us. So thank you for sharing. I'm excited to see your story continue to unfold. Just remarkable what you guys have been able to accomplish. So, and then the city of Bloomington, Illinois. I'm so thrilled. I see that we do have our city manager, and we also have Anthony Nelson on the meeting, I believe. So I would love for you guys to share your story.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Sheila?
Yes, indeed.
And I apologize, I was late. I had something come up. And I'm going to let Anthony do a lot of the talking because he has just embraced this and he has done a fantastic job. He is our arts and entertainment director, and he manages a large arena for us and a performing arts center. But just so much of what was just being said really resonates with me as well. We've been on this journey now. This is probably going into about our second or third year, and we are continuing to evolve. Literally, you talk about getting all of the employees trained. I just had a meeting yesterday where I was giving our staff. We have some electronic training that we've got through some of Sheila's platform, where we're going to have a goal to get everybody trained at least on some of the basic principles by the end of this summer. And so, this is something that you have to set those goals, kind of like what you said, what's working, what's not working, but you keep with those core principles and you do it. And the only thing I would say, there are a lot of things we could talk about, but I would just like to talk about our purpose. And that was one of the things we identified early on at the city. Our directors came together and we came up with the purpose of making life better. And so we try and weave that through everything that we're doing, and asking the question of, is what we are doing making life better for our residents and our citizens, as well as just our fellow employees. And I've had directors who have said to me, they had an interaction with another employee and they said, I look back on that, was I making that other employee's life better? No, I wasn't. I wasn't living up to the culture that we're trying to establish here and we're trying to set. And so those are exciting moments for me. Again, there's a lot of things we could talk about, but I really want Anthony to talk about some of the examples they've done. And I'll tee this off with, again, operate about a 4,000 or 5,000 seat arena. And we got a new professional hockey team in it a couple of years ago, and was going to those games and walking by these concession lines, which I've heard for decades are too long. Everybody complains about them. And I was experiencing now maybe more than ever, walking by them, just seeing how many people are in line and nobody's waiting to buy food, and how much are we leaving on the table? The bad fan experience that people are having, and challenged Anthony to figure out how can you improve this in a building that's not really wide enough, not really designed for this type of thing, but how can you improve that? And Anthony, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you.
Thanks, Jeff. So yeah, obviously the first step is kind of identifying what the problem was, and that one was pretty easy. We knew people were waiting way too long to get into the building, and then way too long to get their food. So we knew the problem, and the big issue is, how do you fix it, right? So 2 other management groups had been in the arena, had the same issues of, well, it's just the building it's not wide enough. There's not enough concession stands. So kind of our first project we took was, we had an ISU Six Sigma class, and I basically gave them a bunch of things to start measuring so that we knew what to fix. And it went anywhere from great ideas from the class to, some ideas that a college kid gives you that's just not a real world experience. But a lot of it was just simple stuff. Like we'd had them interview people after waiting in line, and they're like, well, there were so many things on the menu board. I didn't read it till I got up there. I was overwhelmed. The queuing of the line. Can people see someone down at the very end when their line is open? And then we kind of took that all into our food and beverage staff and said, all right, let's do what we can on a limited budget, fix it right now, and then over the summer really dive into big fixes. So in the meantime, we took whatever items were selling the most in the concession stand, we put them in the middle of all the lines. So you're not walking as many steps to get pretzels, pizzas, popcorn. Nothing that's brain surgery, but if you're saving yourself 15 steps with every transaction, that's real time when you're waiting in line. And then going to other arenas and kind of studying what they're doing. If anybody's been to a game in the last 2 or 3 years, grab and goes at concession stands have become kind of the thing that everybody's doing. So instead of having a transaction where you're interacting with the person the whole time, we created an area where you can grab your own food and drink, and then you take it to the end and somebody checks you out. So instead of having 8 people do all the work, we can run that area with 3 people. And that's become our 3rd busiest concession stand. And that's added a whole new area that takes some of the weight off the other places. So this year we went, our average person who walked in spent $12 at concessions. This year, the average person spent $15 when they came to concessions. So while the ultimate goal was to make a little bit more money, we kind of started with how do we make this better for the fans, and then they'll spend money because of it. So they get into the arena quicker. We updated our entry process, and then our lines moved about 50% faster this year, which means people might come back for that second or third, drink or popcorn at the end of the day. And again, I don't think anything was like earth shattering, but it's a bunch of small things that end up making a big difference. I was with my kids at Six Flags, and the way they kind of partition you off in lines to go right to the middle, I was like, why don't we need to do that with our partitions and not get somebody to the end of the line? Then they can't see the 4th point of sale system at the end. So just moving some little things around ended up making a huge difference. That's all I got.
So Anthony, Jeff, thank you guys so much for sharing. I think, Jeff, if you had something to add, I think you were muted, so go ahead.
I was just going to say the other thing that, Anthony has done is he has instilled a culture within his department where they come together and they look at these processes and there's no bad idea. So he's empowered his staff and he is getting good suggestions and they're making action items. They're doing trial and error. He had a staff member, one of the issues they had was you get up to the metal detectors and you've got your big purse and you can't bring it in. He had a staff member come up with an idea to 3D print a box so that people can know ahead of time, is my purse going to be able to go into this building? And it's just those concepts of instilling, empowering your employees, getting them involved in these processes. It's not just one person at the top saying, this is how it's going to be. This is how we're going to fix it. I think it's those principles that have really made a huge difference. And again, as you said, it's a 25% increase in concessions over last year. You start to see real significant movement, and these things can be applied all across all of the departments. That's just, that's kind of some low-hanging fruit in terms of seeing some actual dollars at work.
Thank you, Jeff and Anthony. James, I know we don't have any questions that have come through on the chat, but really just want to open up our remaining just a few minutes here for anyone who would like to ask any questions, have anything to offer to others.
And one thing I just wanted to say, due to technology, we had a video we were going to share about these Shingo workshops and the impact that will go out to everybody. But again, if you have any questions for Sheila or anybody else involved, including myself, please feel free to send that. But again, in the last few minutes, if anyone has any insights or questions they want to ask, we want to open the door.
So, and just, raise your hand, whatever. I'll share a few.
Joanne, question. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, hi all. Thank you. This was just a delightful webinar, and thank you all for being here. It's great to hear all of the stories. I had a question for the folks at the Kimberly School District. When you think about the different layers, because it's a lot like healthcare, when you think about the different layers of there's the students and then there's the teachers, and both have to demonstrate ideal behaviors for the system to work, and then you overlay that the administration, which all of that, how talk to me a little bit about that. How did you make that work, and how did you get the different entities or groups on board with that?
You want to answer that one?
No, go ahead.
All
I would say it was a process.
Well, at the building level, we didn't start in the classroom with kids right away, and we spent my first year. I spent the entire year helping teachers get to a place where we said our phrase was red is good. So when we're looking at our students and they're in the red, meaning they're not performing or they're not being successful, that's good because we turned that around and said red's an opportunity. And so that was really the culture we tried to build, was learning from our mistakes and understanding from the kids' failures to perform. And so that we spent an entire year just building that culture, so that when we started to do the work around what behaviors they need to improve, because the only difference in the room is the teacher. So if the teacher's not reacting and behaving to the issues that the students are having, nothing's going to be different, right? So you have to change your behavior to help the students perform better and to get them to a place where we want to be. And that's kind of the essence of where we started there. And then, so what I was learning as a principal at the time, then Denise was capturing as our continuous improvement director around what are the behaviors that a principal needs to engage in order to get the teachers to a certain place. So I was doing things without knowing I was doing them necessarily. I was learning along the way. We were studying Shingo. We were studying, actually I studied a lot of kata along the way. So she was capturing that and then kind of synthesizing it in a way to help our other principals understand these are the behaviors you have to engage in.
And I would say it took us, it was quite the journey to answer the question you have, because it was very confusing when you study other organizations, because we have multiple layers of behavior, because our end product is a student that also has behaviors, as you're saying. So it did take us a while to get to that moment to go, oh, okay. I think one thing that at the director level right now that we've come to really realize as directors and people leading the principals is we do a lot of checking with them to make sure they're framing things, goals, as is that a student goal or a teacher goal? So oftentimes principals like to go to, I'm going to fix the teacher. And we have to okay, are you being student centered? Because they'll yes, we do need to focus on teacher behavior, but we find that we will get a lot further if we focus on the student behavior. So I would say that's something over time. And then which it was a quick slide, you saw that we have the student behaviors listed out, the teacher behaviors, which you didn't see, are their principal behaviors listed as well on there. So we've defined the different levels.
I think that's awesome. I just want to say that you said something profound there, and I don't know if you picked up on it, but when you started to accept the red. And typically when organizations start, they want to define what good looks like. And you guys went through and created this culture to create opportunity. What do opportunities look like, so that you really kind of built that culture of a learning organization? So congratulations on all your work. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
That is awesome. Well, there's a question in the chat as to whether or not you all are familiar with the systems thinking going on at the Water Center for System Thinking in Tucson, Arizona, and school districts in Tucson that are on a perhaps similar journey. And while you're taking a look at that, we can go on to the other question that we've gotten here. What's the most challenging thing for an organization to accept as they walk through the Shingo framework, and what strategies for overcoming those? So I'd like to invite everyone to participate. I'll just give a thought and then really give it to those who have walked that journey.
Sheila, I just want to say we're at 1:18, so if anyone needs to drop off, we're going to keep this going and make sure we answer the questions, and then you'll receive this recording for the answer. But we understand how busy everybody's day is, so I just wanted to preface it with that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There's no perfect deployment approach, by the way. And, when people say that fail fast, fail forward, here's what I say. You know what? There is no fail. The only fail is quitting, giving up. And, with every challenge comes better questions, comes more maturity, and that just starts to build additional momentum where you can see more maturity faster as you continue to just keep taking that swing at batting practice, Tim. That's what it's all about. So for the panelists here, anything that you would like to share about what you felt was challenging and how you worked through this.
I think
One
we have two
additional
things over
setup.
here.
Those,
I think we have two
yeah,
things over here.
Tim, please.
Alex would argue, at least in today's moment, that having managers own systems is really a struggle. And I would say, actually, the daily management of the behaviors that are driving the results you want is something that our leaders are really struggling with. Because again, you're looking for results, but what we're missing is the daily behaviors that are not driving the ideal results. And no one's looking at the behavior. We've identified some of these behaviors, and yet we still don't address them on a daily basis in a real cadence of daily management around behavioral expectations from all levels, managers, directors, up and down. And I think that's a big challenge at the moment for us.
How are you guys and Kimberly and also Bloomington, how are you using the Gemba to learn how to continuously observe behaviors so that you can help inform modifications to your systems that might be needing? Is Gemba a part of everything that you do from the top of the organization all the way down?
Yeah, we actually identified Gemba as one of our 4 core principal behaviors for our principals, and in this government world, it might be managers, equivalent to managers, but that is actually one of the 4 core behaviors. Is you have to Gemba on a regular basis to understand the problems that are in your organization or your building.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I was going to say we've incorporated that into our leader standard work that we have are spreading throughout our directors and our culture as well, but critical to that.
Yeah, it's so important.
That sounds super simple, right? Let's just get out to the floor and see what's going on. That seems like that should be easy to do. But we're not good at asking questions. We haven't learned how to ask the right questions. These are real challenges of skill gaps, right? I mean, these are skill gaps from our leaders team of how to keep this moving.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, no, I was just also going to say, in answering to this question, I think one of the biggest challenges we saw initially was I could see how something like this would work in manufacturing, but how is Lean going to apply to a government entity or a service industry? And maybe that's already been discussed on this. I apologize. I feel, you still get some of that, but to what you were saying at Goodyear, one of the biggest things we had, I went to a Yellow Boat training at an ICMA conference and was hearing about how communities were getting their plan reviews done in 24 hours or a week or whatever, and it's taken us 6, 7, 8 months. And so one of the first things that we tackled was our plan review process, and we got that down through a process walk into 2 weeks and under, and we're consistently meeting that. We just had an $80 million project where we got the first plan review done in 14 days. And so once people started seeing, oh, well, this can apply to more than just making widgets, I think we started to get more buy-in from people. But that's still, I think, a challenge that sometimes we face.
It's great insight.
Well, yeah, and part of it is just the organizational structural integrity to continuously go through. I think, John, you mentioned kata, which is simply just the rhythm of work, the pattern of work that creates that I'm going to get up and I'm going to do these things because I believe these things. There's an expression of are you going to think your way into a new way of behavior, or are you going to behave your way into a new way of thinking? And it's the latter that typically works, but it does. Each of us faces our own, personal discipline as individuals contributing within those organizations in order to make that possible. So we've got another question here for Kimberly. As a former teacher, how did you handle misbehaving students?
Yeah, I just want to, before I answer that, just want to clarify, when we talk about student behaviors, we're talking about ideal student behaviors, behaviors that students engage in during the learning process. And then there's this other set of behaviors, how do we behave in a social setting with our peers and not misbehave and get into trouble. But that's a struggle for all schools. It doesn't matter where you are. Our students who aren't behaving, we have a whole behavioral system it's expected at every building. We call it tiers. There's a certain tier one is what's expected and clear in the classroom. And then there's tier two, where we surround the kid with a team. And then tier three would be intensive intervention if behaviors increase. So I'm not sure if that really answers the question that you were getting at, but I wanted to clarify between our ideal learning behaviors versus misbehaving children. Two different things.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Well, I tell you, I mean, James, again, I appreciate you inviting us to talk about the Shingo model living in the public sector. I'm so excited for its potential, making things better for those who are serving and for those who are being served. And, I just, I encourage everyone, what do you have to lose with the Shingo model, right? I mean, it's not like you have to create a poster saying, oh, I'm using the Shingo model. I mean, the language of the model is human being language. It's not jargon. It's things like respect every individual, create value for the customer. It's things that people universally hold, I think, as truths that they wouldn't necessarily push back on. And, as individuals, I mean, no one knew that I was using the Shingo model at State Farm until, we started seeing the window of opportunity when people were saying, hey, how are you doing this? We could say, well, here's the framework. It is not an alternative to a lean operating system. It is not an alternative to using agile framework. It is a approach, a holistic approach for what you're already doing to be more effective. So, what do you have to lose, especially with the free download of the model and just reflecting on it? One thing, I spent a lot of time in internal consulting at State Farm, which was a lot of time then on airplanes. And there's a beautiful painting when you're going through TSA in the city of Bloomington, Illinois, that was painted by a local artist named Angel Ambrose. And it's called Step of Faith. And it's this beautiful, huge painting of a pathway. And, what do you have to lose? There's nothing. I'm so grateful for Louis Telleria writing on my whiteboard, shingo.org in 2005, 2006-ish, because it's changed my life. It made me a much better leader because I was what they call a hero leader. I'll work harder, I'll work longer, I'll do more, I'll study more. And that's not at all how you scale an organization for sustained success. And I attribute the Shingo model to being one of the greatest personal development experiences that I've also had as a leader. So thank you, James.
Oh, you're very welcome. I think this was fantastic that we had a panel of people that sharing this. And I just want to say, like, the Shingo model is very dear to my heart. Sheila's trying to get me up to speed, so maybe I can get to affiliate status one of these days. It was something that my dad was heavily involved, and he's a lifelong member of the Shingo Institute. And from as a ardent student of going to the Gemba and reading everything I can and seeing results, this is the gold standard for organizational excellence, and I encourage anyone to get involved. And Sheila, I think like we should probably do a series of short videos we could talk about for the Discover Excellence workshop and to get started, how we can do that for organizations. But also for those of you in the Jacksonville area, here, Shingo had an influence back, 17, 18 years ago, and we had the conference here. We're trying to bring that back, and we're looking for advocates that believe in this. And this is not a sales pitch. This is just what I think we believe is the best for every local community, whether it's private or public sector. So just a couple details. Everyone will get a recording of this video. We'll get the slides. Please feel free to reach out. I'll speak on behalf of the panelists to ask any questions you might have. And I'm hoping like we can have a follow-up at some point of this. And Sheila, I think like we'll do some one-on-one videos. Maybe we can get in more because again, overly ambitious trying to get this in 75 minutes because this is such amazing stuff. So again, I want to thank all the panelists, everybody that attended, and most of all, Sheila, thank you for helping putting this together and your work on this.